What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react to a very, very relevant question, given the times that we're living in now. Are Americans still welcome in Canada? So, given everything that's happened, especially the last couple of months between the United States and Canada, the tariffs, the trade wars, and the 51st state threats. I mean, from what I've seen on the internet, it actually feels like there's a lot of Canadians out there that don't even feel all that welcome here in the United States, actually. So I'm very, very curious about what Canadians have to say about this question. So, for those of us Americans here who would be interested in visiting Canada, are Americans still welcome in Canada? So I want to take a look at this Reddit discussion where this exact question was asked. Are we still welcome in Canada? This is from an American who is curious about this and wanted to visit. And a lot of Canadians wrote some responses and comments, and I want to take a look at what Canadians had to say about this. So let's start here with, you're welcome as long as you're not a jackass. That's I laugh because it's like, shouldn't that be posted on like every welcome sign in every country? Like, you are welcome here as long as you are not a moron. No, that's okay. You have the right to be a moron. You even have the right to be a jackass, if that's what you do. But you might not be welcome. That's the difference. If we're being very, very literal right now, the actual law of Canada, like, it hasn't changed, right? Like, technically speaking, legally speaking, Americans are welcome in Canada, right? I mean, I know at the border and stuff, here in the United States, things have gotten stricter from what I've heard, and people are not being treated maybe as kindly or maybe not even as fair as in the past, and they're asking all sorts of questions and scrutiny, and I know that they always did that, and in America they have the right, I think, to turn you down from visiting for basically any reason. But now that's kind of extended into these, horror stories of deportations and getting turned around for really stupid reasons, and people who would previously have the right and be welcome here in the United States are maybe not so much these days. I guess as an American, I still like to think that this is a good place to come visit. Come on. Anyway, this isn't about that. This is about visiting Canada, and I think what my point was there is, legally speaking, us Americans, we can visit Canada. It's just, are we welcome? And it's like, yes, just don't be a jackass. That's like the simplest possible way of putting it, isn't it? And no 51st state jokes. It's not funny. Okay. That's important, isn't it? Because I think there are a decent amount of Americans who really do not understand the gravity of the situation. I've talked about this before, in other videos. And a lot of Americans just simply don't talk about or don't really worry about or think about the whole Canada 51st state thing. And I've said this before, since we're America, if you're American, you're on the side of this situation where we are the aggressor here. And for a lot of Americans, I think it makes that difficult for them to care, for lack of a better, way to say it. If we were being aggressed upon, if that makes sense, if Canada was the aggressor to the United States and you guys were like, hey, you know what? Maybe the United States should become uh, a Canadian province. Maybe the United States should be part of Canada. Ha ha! I guarantee you, Americans would be furious, up in arms, would be so, hurt and annoyed, and all of these things that a lot of Canadians are feeling. But since it's the other way around, a lot of Americans don't really care. So I bet some Americans would make jokes about the 51st state thing. Apparently, not that funny because it's a little too real. It's gotten a little too real to be funny. I think that's what we're saying here. So, the number one response here from a Canadian to the question, are Americans still welcome in Canada, is you are welcome, but don't be an idiot jackass with a bad sense of humor. And again, if we're really, really being technical here, the question is, are you welcome in Canada? Like, I suppose any American, if you don't have a criminal record or you're not like smuggling guns or something, if you're just a normal American, if you want to visit Canada and be a jerk and be like, ha, we're going to take you over and I hope your economy tanks and you're going to pay us tariffs, lots of tariffs on aluminum. If you want to be that American, I suppose technically you can do it. But somebody's probably going to hit you in the head with a hockey stick. And I think that would be deserved. All right, let's keep going here to some more comments from Canadians on this. Yes, you're welcome. Don't mention the attack on sovereignty, though. So the top answers here are basically saying, yeah, as Canadians, you don't feel like, it's not like you hate Americans. That's actually a big point here. It's not like you hate like just normal everyday Americans who want to visit Canada. I think there's one American in particular that a lot of Canadians don't like. One very particular American. I feel like there was a joke there, but yeah, I'm talking about Donald Trump in particular, who, of course, implemented a lot of these new policies and started the 51st state rhetoric. I bet for a lot of Canadians, that's the one American who's not welcome, really. And I suppose if you're an American who wants to go into Canada just to troll, but that's like anywhere. If you're visiting any country anywhere in the world and your goal is to go there to troll them and say something rude or be like, I voted for this. I want us to take over Canada. And you're being real weird and rude and on it like someone should smack you if you're doing that. But technically, I guess you're allowed, but you won't be welcome. That's the question here. Are Americans welcome? Yes, but don't mention the sovereignty and stuff. I bet you can mention it, but don't be the American who's like, I like that we're attacking your sovereignty. I like that. Be like, geez, man, get a grip. This is the way. We'll welcome you with open arms, but the sovereignty thing really pisses us off. Yeah, okay, this was kind of, I had an idea in my mind of how Canadians would respond to this question, but it just feels really good to read this, actually hear it from Canadians. It sounds like Canadians don't necessarily just dislike all Americans, like, as a whole. It's really, Canadians dislike probably Donald Trump at this moment for all the things he's done so far, and people who support those policies, I would imagine. Only the big fat orange... There's the joke. There's the joke that I was trying to think of a joke. So there we go. Someone did it for me. Just don't be a dick. it's it's funny to me because it's like, yeah, that should be a law. That should be on the signs when entering Canada. It should say that. Yes, it should say that when you're entering, if you're going to enter the United States. I think that's just a life rule to live by. Yes. Okay. Yes, if you come to Canada, you'll be fine. Just don't mention the 51st state. I'm a dual citizen of the United States and Canada. I moved back to Canada a while ago before the election. I won't lie, I didn't change my license plate from Tennessee. Is that Tennessee? Yeah, Tennessee until this week. The whole fiasco was my motivation to get a Canadian plate. Oh my God. So if you like drive into Canada, is that an actual concern? Because I was just like kind of celebrating the fact that, oh, Canadians don't necessarily just have animosity towards random American citizens. But if you're driving around Canada with, maybe it's Tennessee in particular, I don't know, with a certain license plate from America, what, you're going to get like poutine thrown at you or something? But it was fine. No one rode. Oh, okay. It was fine. It was fine. It was fine. No one road raged at me. No one prevented me from merging. No one cut me off. I didn't experience any hostility on the roads. That's very nice to hear. It sounds like the Canadian hostility towards the United States is not just random and just lunacy. Just it's focused. It's focused. Intentional disdain for, rightfully so, for any of the bad things we're doing towards Canada. It's really directed at that stuff, which is nice. Not just like all Americans. So that's cool. I think that's a very logical way to go about it, which is not that easy to do, because this whole situation is very emotional. Fundamentally, it's very emotional. You got the leader of another country, the United States, us, who we've historically been such great friends and close allies, and suddenly you got the leader of the United States implementing all these policies out of nowhere, seemingly randomly attacking Canada, calling into question its sovereignty. It's gotta be difficult to hear that, to experience that. I try to put myself, I really do try to put myself in Canadians' shoes when you're like thinking about how to digest this whole situation. I think a lot of Americans can't even begin to really think about what it would be like if Canada did all of this to us. If Canada had done all this stuff to the United States, that's really the only way Americans would understand what Canadians are going through and how you guys are feeling. But you seem to be handling it quite well with kind of a very focused retaliation. Canadians understand that it's not every American citizen's fault automatically for what's happening in Washington. Very true. Very true. I appreciate that sentiment, truly. We could use the tourism dollars too. You just want us for our money. That's okay. That's an exaggeration, but it doesn't hurt, does it? The tourism dollars. It's about to get rough here, and your money will go far with our exchange rate. Every price you see is like a 30 to 35% discount. What's the Canadian dollar? What? Hold on. Let me do $1 US to Canadian dollar. I got my phone here. $1 US is worth $1.37? Wait, what? Wait, what? Hold on, I could be rich. If I just moved to Canada, I could be rich. Um, for me to have 1 Canadian dollar, I need 73 cents. Oh my dear Lord. Okay. Okay. Might pick up a new T-shirt or something. Wow. That is like a 30% discount. I didn't. Holy cow! I didn't know that. Jeez. Okay. Good. Got me excited. All right. Don't wear a MAGA hat and you'll be fine. Even if you wore one, though, you'll just probably get dirty looks. And that's sort of the crux of what I was getting at earlier without outright saying it. If you express certain political opinions in Canada, normally it might not even be that big a deal. Any other time in history or whatever. But it's like right now, if you're going to Canada and wearing like a MAGA hat, you're really asking for people to be pissed off at you. Like even normally in some parts of America and some parts of Canada, you're asking for like looks. And in some parts of America and some parts of Canada, people pat you on the back and give you a handshake. It's just different depending on where you go. But politics aside, if you're like wearing the red MAGA hat in Canada right now, that's because it's just so much of the stuff has been directly anti-Canadian. It's not even like it doesn't even have to do with you supporting conservative policies wearing that hat. It's just too. I totally get it. I get why that would be like hurtful. But even still, you can do it. You can do it if you want. That is the great thing about Canada. Great thing about the United States too. We're both pretty free countries, pretty open-minded. I like to think so. And you can do it. You can legally. I don't know what's going to happen to you. You might just get dirty looks, maybe more. I don't know, or quite possibly a punch in the face. I mean, maybe. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. We're talking about Canada here. You guys are known for being like polite, nice, open-minded, but it wouldn't blow my mind or anything to hear that happening. If you're a nice person and you're respectful of the local Canadian communities, you may be a tourist and visit. I don't think anyone would really care. To hate all Americans blindly is stupid, and only stupid people do that. See, this is such a. I love this. I love this discussion. I love what the Canadians are saying here. I love it. It's so rational. It's so rational to be like, okay, we're Canadian. We really don't like what's being said and done over here. We don't like this person and those people who support that. And we don't like the anti-Canada stuff. But that's not everybody. That's not every American, and I know that. And so I don't hate all Americans blind. That's great. I very much agree with that sentiment. Canada needs to run a big tourism ad campaign in the States this year to welcome Americans to come up. Oh, is tourism down? Like Americans going to Canada, is that down? I know Canadians coming to America is way down. It's costing us like billions of dollars or something because Canadians are just straight up don't want to come to the United States. I understand why. Are Americans like still going to Canada in the same? I would think honestly, from the American point of view, most Americans like just as many Americans as ever like Canada. A lot of Americans don't think much about Canada. We don't think much about any country other than America, to be honest. But most Americans like Canada when we do think about it. And there's no Canada sentiment in America. There is none. There's no anti-Canada, as far as I've seen. I guess I don't speak for the entire United States. I don't represent all the states of the United States and all the people. I'm just going by my day-to-day American existence. What are people, normal, everyday people that I interact with, talking about? And no, there's no like anti-Canada thing going on. We looked at some stats in a video I did a while ago, and according to the data, most Americans don't even really agree with Canada should join the United States. Or most Americans think it should be Canada's choice, which obviously it's kind of insulting to even ask Canada to join the United States. But if we're going to put that out there, obviously it's Canada's choice. And it's also your right to be offended by the question. I'm an American who moved to Canada. No one has a problem with me. Cool. Very cool. I really enjoyed this. This was a question that was really in the top of my mind. Once I saw this on Reddit and that Canadians were answering this question, I really wanted to take a look. And I really enjoyed this because it was actually exactly the response I was kind of hoping for. Really cool to see Canadians sort of handling and answering the situation in this manner. And I know this discussion doesn't represent all Canadians. I understand that. There's a lot of different Canadians with a lot of different opinions, but for me, for right now, this was a good little way for me to learn more about this. So I quite enjoyed this. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on, are Americans still welcome in Canada? If you're Canadian, please feel free to give your thoughts and opinions. That'd be awesome to hear more about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and learning about Canadian culture and seeing Canadian things I've never seen, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.